In the last video, I dealt with the cleared flag, which is case 3, and in this video, I'm going to deal with check no, which is case 4. What you see on the screen is from the previous video. Case 4 is probably the most difficult to deal with. The reason is that all the other cases always have a value in between the double quotes. But in case 4, I rarely write paper checks. And so I have hundreds of transactions that do not have a check number. It just has the double quotes signifying a blank field. But in those cases where the check number does exist, it has to be handled. And so that's what we're going to try and address in this video. So looking at the line 7, check no length is 4. Looking at line 11, inside the structure, check no is a character array field. 5 characters wide, 4 for the check number, 1 for the terminating null. So in case 4, because we know it's a character array, we can use the same techniques we've used above for date in case 1. And so we'll use string ncopy to copy into transaction.checkNo from PCH and +1. We know that we've been bitten before by starting with the double quote, so the +1 gets us past the double quote to the first digit in the check number. And then we want to copy check no length characters. We also know we want to terminate transaction.checkNo with a terminating null character. And then we want to print the field out. Now, since these are tried and true techniques, I would expect this to work. And whoa, it didn't work. So if we look at the case 4 at the last record here, the next line down shows a double quote. But we used our little technique PCH +1 to get past the first double quote. So I suppose we're looking at the second double quote, which is not what we want. However, when there is a check number in the field, I think that is the processing we want. And to verify that, we can find a check number and take a look at it. So here we see case 4 has a check number in the field. And in the next line down, our check number got pulled out just perfectly. And so at least in the case of there being a check number in the field, that logic seems to work. Well, so the way to take a stab at this is to figure out, is there a way for me to test and see if I am looking at a blank check number field or a check number field that has something in it? And the answer is yes, there is. There's a set of character class functions in the C library, and one of them is called isDigit. And so if there's a digit inside the parentheses here, PCH, then it's going to test and give us true or false back on whether or not it's a digit. And that's kind of what we need so we can figure out how to handle this case. Let's see here. I'll say printf, and then I'll say debug, just so it'll catch our eye. And then we'll look at what this character is. Star PCH. I'm going to yank that and put it down here too. And then I need to say, this is the else statement and this is the if statement. This way, when I'm debugging, I can see where the message was generated from. So I will try and compile it, and of course we get this error, implicitly declaring library function isDigit. So that's our clue that we probably need to bring in another header file. All right, so let's jump over and see what this thing is. In the C library reference on C++.com, ctype.h is the character handling functions header file. These functions take an int equivalent of one character as a parameter and return an int that can either be another character or a value representing true or false. 0 meaning false. So here is a character classification function called isDigit. It checks if the character that we're pointing at, or that we've passed, is a decimal digit. Okay? And so we're going to be checking for a 0 value for false or a non-zero value for true. And here's some example code you can study. So obviously, to fix this first error, I need to go back in and add another header file. So pound include ctype.h. We need that for isDigit. Okay, so I will try and compile that. This time it worked. And I run it. And so, okay, this makes sense. In case 4, when I have an empty check, I'm hitting the else and I'm pointing at a double quote. That's just what my little debug statement is telling me. And that explains why we're getting a double quote here. And then I'll go back and find a record that has a check number in it so that we can take a look at that. All right, so case 4, I do have a check number. My debug says I'm still hitting the else case, but I am properly pulling out the check number. So there's something wrong with my logic if I'm hitting the else case both times. And, oh yeah, I forgot the +1. So in the case where we don't have a check number, +1 should be pointing to a double quote. But in the case where we do have a check number, then +1 should be pointing to a digit. Okay, and then we know from the cleared flag processing that we have to put PCH +1 in parentheses in order to increment the pointer and not the object being dereferenced. So let's try this again. Okay, so here in case 4 where there's a blank check number, we hit the else debug logic and it says, yeah, we're pointing at a double quote. And now let's go up and see a record that has a check number in it. And here we go. And now we can see that case 4, we have a check number. We can see that our logic's correct because we hit the if part of the debug statement. I forgot to update the actual character it's pointing to, so I'll fix that so my debug statement looks proper. So I put the fix in right here to test the proper character, but I'm still printing out the wrong character. So here, just to fix our debug statements, I should make that match. And down here, I should make it match. And there's a smarter way to do this, but for now, we don't want to take too much time. Okay, so one more round. Okay. Case 4, we hit the else logic, and now we know we're pointing to PCH +1 and dereferencing there. And then I'll go up to where we do have a check number. coming through. Okay, now we see that we're hitting the if part of the branch, and we are pointing at a 7. And that's why the test for is digit came back true. And we're properly pulling out the check number. So now we have some confidence that we've coded up the logic correctly. So let's finally fix this. Okay, so now we have our if-else testing right. And so I basically want to pull the string copy from line 82 and put it under the true part of the if. I'm going to delete my debug statement. And then I'm going to copy line 79, and I'm going to put that in my else portion, and I'm going to delete my debug statement. So when it's true, I want to copy starting at PCH plus 1. And when it's not true, I want to change out PCH plus 1 and put in a literal 4 spaces like that. Then regardless of which branch I take, the if or the else, I'm going to copy the right value into the structure. And then after I've done that, I'm going to terminate the check no field with a null character. And let's see if this works for us. Okay, so in case 4, there's no check number, and we properly store 4 spaces and print out 4 spaces. So that looks like it worked. And then I'll go find a record with the check number in it. And here, in case 4, we have a check number. We properly pull out the check number without the double quotes. So I think we may have it. And I'm going to go in and remove the duplicated print statements. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of print case 4. And now I think we have our solution.